Well, hello friends, Coach Bob with you today, and today, man, let me close this up. Have I got a video for you, man? It is going to be a good one. It's on dealing with the heat. Oh yeah, it's hot too, man. Let me tell you, it's hot. It's hot here. I'll drop a couple of screenshots right here of what the temperature has been like this week. We had the highest heat index that I've ever seen in my life here. It was 120 degrees. It was hot. And let me tell you, when you're a swim coach standing on the deck in 120 degree heat for 2 hours, you feel it. It's one of those things it's one of those things that you say you can't prepare for, but you really can. And so what we're going to do, we're going to talk about that today, what you can do. There are things you can do, proactive things you can do, things that you can do that may cost you a little bit of money, and things that you can just do that are common sense, and then some preparation, long-term preparation that will help you handle the heat better. So, but before we get going on this hot topic, oh yeah, I did it. But before we go on this hot topic, do me a favor, give the video a big old sweaty thumbs up. I would greatly appreciate it. You know, one that is dripping wet with sweat because it's so hot, even your thumbs are sweating. All right. Well, so the heat, man, you know, for those of you who've been watching the channel, you know, a year and a half ago, I had a little heart episode, and, you know, my body doesn't handle the heat as well as it used to. Look at this, man. We just had a storm and blew that tree limb down. Look at that right there. Don't want to come barrel around a corner and slap into that. But my body doesn't handle the heat as well. And that can be very, very frustrating for me because I spend a lot of my time out in the heat, and so I've had to really take this very seriously. How can I ride? How can I do things? Last year when I did the Deadwood Spider Rally, my doctor, I was under a strict order not to ride to the rally and to limit my time in the heat when I was riding. Well, now a year has gone by, I've got a clean bill of health, but the doctor still tells me that I push it a little too hard sometimes, that I like to redline it. So I've come up with a plan on how I handle heat, and it will work across the boards. And so we're gonna start out, you know, with the simple fixes, and the simple fixes are, well, they're simple. So let's start out. Fix number one on how to deal with the heat. The very first thing you can do is buy you a nice mesh jacket. Now this jacket is made by Canam. It doesn't have to be a Canam jacket. Canam jackets are a little bit pricey sometimes, but if you want a Canam jacket and you want to represent the brand, they're out there. Go to the Canam On-Road website, look at the jackets that they have, and then go to your dealer. You can either order it through the website, or your dealer may have it in stock, or they can order it for you. But a mesh jacket, again, it doesn't have to be Can-Am. I've got a Dainese jacket called the Sevilla jacket, and that jacket, I'm going to tell you, is cooler than this one. Not looking, but it's cooler. I use that jacket on brutally hot days. Today it's like 90 degrees because we just had a big rainstorm like 30 minutes ago. But if it was like super duper crazy hot, I would get that jacket out and I would wear it. But right now I could wear just any mesh jacket that I have. This jacket does very, very well. The Dainese, again, the Dainese Sevilla does very, very well. I've got a Joe Rocket. It's a 3-season jacket, and it does great. I can't really remember what model my Joe Rocket is, but there are a ton of mesh 3-season jackets that Joe Rocket makes that, you know, you can get. There are a ton of jackets out there. Look for a summer riding jacket. There are adventure jackets that you can buy that have all the road protection that you could handle, and they'll keep you super cool. So the very first thing you can do, you can buy a nice mesh jacket that's going to keep you safe and it's going to keep you cool. So that's number one. All right. Number two. Now, number two, I'm going to tell you to do this one, although I'm going to tell you I don't do it. And I'm going to tell you why I don't do it after I tell you what it is. But what it is a cooling vest. Now, a cooling vest, you can put it in an ice chest and you wet it, you get it cold, and then you put it on, and then it evaporates and it ends up, you know, drying, and then you put it in your ice chest again for a few minutes. It absorbs the water. It's nice and cold. You put it on, takes your breath away. You ride for a little while. Now, I'm going to tell you, it works really well The issue that I have with it is I just end up like it gets my clothes wet, and I've had one that I've used for a couple of months, and I just was not a big fan of it, even in the heat. It feels good when you put it on, but when I get off the bike, you know, my britches are wet where it might have dripped out, or my shirt is like this weird kind of super duper crazy wet. What I've discovered that the higher the humidity, the less impact these things have, because it can't evaporate. It just sits there like an extra insulate. What I actually do when I ride here in the South, where I have very, very high humidity, I bring multiple t-shirts is what I do. I find that I'm cooler if I change t-shirts and my t-shirts aren't as wet. The more wet my shirts get, the more hot I am in the middle of the day. Now once the sun falls, that's a different story. But if I'm riding in the middle of the day in the South, in the deep South, where the humidity is 95%, 98%, and nothing evaporates, you're just wet. When you walk outside, you're wet. I prefer to have dry clothes because my skin is always going to have a little bit of dampness to it due to the perspiration, and that's going to be more than enough just to keep me cool. But a cooling vest in a dry climate, or in the early morning or the late evening, is going to be a big help to you. So cooling vest would be number 2, but I do have mixed emotions on them in this area. All right, number 3. Number 3 is something that you have to physically do, okay? And that is adjust your riding time. Adjusting your riding time can be very, very helpful. Anyone who's followed this channel for a while understands that I live by the, if you lose an hour in the morning, you'll be looking for it all day long. You will be. I like to get up early and get on the road. So when we travel, I want to be up an hour or two before the sun's really up. So I want to be on the road, say 5-ish. You know, if I can get on the road 4:45, I love that. But Coach Vic, you know, she's more the 5:30 girl. So I get her going, and then we get on the road anywhere between 5 and 5:30 is where we normally depart. You have a good 4 hours of riding time before it's hot. So even in the deep South, before 9 a.m. it is very, very doable on a motorcycle, and even before 10 a.m. it's bearable. Around 11 things start really, really heating up. I mean, it gets super duper hot, like I said. But if you can get up and ride early, then you're going to be much, much better off. You know, another thing you can do is you can find a cool spot in the middle of the day. But this is a difficult thing to do depending on how you travel. But if you can find a place, you know, a place to hang out for 6 to 8 hours, yes, and then late afternoon, maybe an hour before sundown, get up and ride a little bit more, then you can find a little cool air on the backside. What I prefer to do is this: I just get up early and I ride. And then I ride until I'm done. And I've got the bulk of my miles done by noon as far as my planned mileage. My planned mileage is complete by noon, and then I just kind of peck about the last half of the day. And if I can get another 200-300 miles in while it's hot, I'll do that. And if not, I'll just find a hotel. And if they don't have my room ready at 1 in the afternoon, then I'll just sit in the lobby until they get my room ready. I'll sit in there and I'll do some editing and use their Wi-Fi, you know, and their air conditioning. And, you know, a lot of times they'll give you a bottle of water and you just hang out and enjoy your day. But getting up early is a huge, huge thing. All right. So there's 1, 2, and 3, and all of those are super duper simple. The last 2, they're not going to be quite as easy for you because they require what I would call time. And time is one of those things that you go, okay, well, I want to leave tomorrow. It's too late. It's too late. When Coach Vic and I do big trips, we normally plan on those trips for over a month. You know, it's funny, John and Miriam, you know, they do the same thing. In fact, they'll 6 months, 7 months ahead, they're preparing, they're buying things, they're getting things ready, they're planning how many miles a day they're going to do. And I think they do a much more thorough job of planning their trip than I do. I normally will have the mileage that I plan on putting in per day, and I get all my gear ready. Other than that, there's not a whole lot that I do other than these two things. So here are the two things. Number one, acclimatization. I know that sounds silly. You're going, what? Yes. You know, if you sit in the air conditioning all the time, you're not gonna be very, very receptive to a hot day. You're just not. You know, I drive Coach Vic crazy because what I'll do is I will go out and sit in the backyard in the heat of the day for 15 to 20 minutes, 2-3 times a day. Now, what does that do? That gets my body used to being in the heat. And if you can up it to 20-30 minutes, you can do it. Have you a cool drink, sit out there, read a book. Yes, you're going to be hot. Me and a buddy of mine, when preparing for motorcycle trips, we've got a Lucky Goat coffee place here in town. We go sit outside in 100-degree heat and drink coffee and just talk. And when we can no longer stand it, we go, okay, man, see you tomorrow for another cup of coffee. And we'll do that for weeks before going on a trip. That's how you get used to it. Go for a walk. Here's the thing, go for a walk early in the morning before it's crazy hot to get your real walk done. And then every time you eat a meal, go out for a 10-minute walk. That 10-minute walk in the heat, you know, if you eat at noon, you eat again at 4. If you're old like me, you eat your supper early. Just go for a little 10-minute walk in the heat. And if you do the sit down outside 15 minutes 3 times and walk twice at 10, you've been over an hour in the heat every single day. All right, the last thing you can do to prepare for the heat is this. This is a hard one. This is the hardest one. That's why I saved it for last. You can lose weight. I know. That's not the one we want to hear, is it? You know, I discussed in the last video, we were talking about being an aging rider, and I'll drop a link to that right up here or down below, one of the two. But anyway, as an aging rider, keeping yourself fit is paramount. Well, staying lean is one of the best things you can do as far as heat exertion and being able to handle the heat. You know, we have to take a course every year for heat stroke, heat frustration, cardiac arrest, all of these heat-based things that occur to athletes. And the two things they talk about with great regularity is acclimatization, which takes months. Because kids sit in there and they play video games all day. And then the other thing is, if you have a kid that is heavier, that child is going to need more protection from the sun. So you're going to have to watch those guys a little more close, and you'll see their face will get super duper duper red, and it's like, are you okay? You'll see them with their hands on their knees, right? You'll hear them, they'll say, my heart's starting to pound out of my chest. That sort of stuff. Those are your warning signs, you know, that you're getting too hot. So if you can drop 10 to 20 pounds, you would be amazed at the difference that makes. You've noticed that weightlifters and morbidly obese people, their life expectancy is lower. Now, people can die young all the time. I had a daughter pass away, for crying out loud. I had a heart episode at 62. So, and obviously we were healthy people. Things can happen. But understand that there are things that you can control, and the things that you can control, you need to try to. So this isn't about shaming you or making you feel bad about yourself. This isn't about any of that. This is about how to handle the heat and how to feel better. And I'm going to tell you that as we age, you know, we need to be real careful about that stuff. But bodybuilders and overweight people, that heart has to work harder to pump that blood. The building is bigger. The circulatory system is being asked to do more. So you have to understand that too much mass can be a problem for your heart. So be careful with that. And again, try to control your weight. I'm going to be doing some videos here soon on that, how to help you with your weight control. It's not going to be a Saturday morning video. It'll be like a Tuesday or Thursday video, something to just help you get your foot moving along the right path. All right. We're going to talk a little more about a couple of things that you can do if you get too hot, because if you get too hot, it can be a real problem. So, but before we close out with that, I want you to do me a favor. Give the video a big old thumbs up. Make sure you're subscribed to the channel. 80% of the people that watch these videos aren't subscribed, so subscribe to the channel. Do all that stuff. You know I would appreciate it. All right. So you're riding along. All of a sudden, your heart's going pitter-pat, pitter-pat. And you're going, man, I got too hot. What do I do now? Well, I can tell you, it's scary when that happens. You know, just this past week, I was working in the yard, and I would come inside, and Vicky's like, Bob, do not die in the yard. Do not die in the yard. You're working too hard. Slow down. You don't have to work in the hottest part of the day. But here, there is no cool part of the day. So if I'm going to work, I'll get up in the morning and do it, but my working often spills over to 2, 3 in the afternoon. And it gets brutal. I change shirts 3 to 5 times a day when I'm working in the yard. It's crazy. It's hot. And I find myself having these little hot episodes, I'll call them. There's nothing that scares me. When I was a boy, we called it the bear gotcha, right? When I was a kid, yes, I cropped tobacco as a kid. Typical Southern boy in the 60s and 70s. We made $15 a day and we worked. And if a kid passed out in the field, they'd pull us to the side and we'd all laugh and go, the bear got him. That's what it was. So heat and heat frustration are just a part of my landscape and have been my whole life. So knowing that, when you feel the bear crawling on your back, what can you do? What can you do? Well, the first thing you can do is you can seek shelter. That's the very first thing you can do. And is if you've got someone with you, they need to seek shelter for you. If it's gone so far that you've lost consciousness, or if it's gone so far that you're confused, you need to seek shelter. Coach Vic and I, a few years ago when we did our California trip, East Coast to West Coast trip, which was an amazing trip, we got trapped in West Texas where it was just super duper hot. The ambient air temperature was like 110. It was crazy that day. And we ended up stopping at a hotel in the middle of the day and just sitting in their lobby. But before we did that, I mean, we were just cooking. We rode with our jackets on. It was hot. We tried it with jackets off. It was hot. We tried it in flannel shirts. It was hot. There's just no escaping it. And there was no shade anywhere. It was just, there was nothing but heat and pavement. So what we did, we pulled over, we opened the cooler. This is where a cooling vest would have been a big help. But we opened the cooler, we took our shirts off. Yes, even Coach Vic, the effervescent, very, very modest Coach Vic, on the side of the road, taking her shirt off. We're putting it in the cooler, we're cooling them off, we're putting them on. They're covered in cold, icy water. I took her shoes off, I cooled her feet down. I got damp rags and wiped her arms down and put them around her neck. All of that stuff, right? You have to do what you can do to bring the core down. Bring it down. You don't want to put them into shock, you know. You don't want to dump an ice chest over their head. I mean, you might need to if it's an emergency. If it's really bad, like they're passed out, you got to cool them down immediately. But really what you need to just try to do is bring their core temperature down. And that is something that is absolutely critical if you can't seek shelter. The perfect scenario would be find a place where you can have shelter and bring your core temperature down all at the same time, and you have an extended period of time in that cool air to recover. You know, when you get really, really too hot and your body's working hard to basically live, you'll be exhausted after a little episode like that. Your heart can pound, and you will have a hard time keeping your eyes open. You may stay at a hotel for 2 hours and go, I'm done, I'm whipped. And your body will be exhausted. Go get some rest, Drink plenty of fluids. And that's the next thing I'm going to talk about, is drinking fluids. That's something you can do on the front side and if you go too far. So what is my go-to drink? You know, a lot of people, they're big into, you know, Gatorade or whatever, you know, and all that's fine. But what I'm going to tell you I drink is a product. It's a powder product. And no, I don't get a kickback. I don't get a nickel. I spend my money buying this product. And I drink one of these every day. It's called Liquid IV. You can buy it at Target. You can buy it at Walmart. You know, all your basic, you know, chain stores. You can buy it. But it's literally called Liquid IV. It has a lot of good stuff in it. It's called a hydration multiplier. Before I go to the pool, when I'm riding in the van, I'm drinking a Liquid IV and a Propel mixed together in a 32-ounce bottle. I drink 32 ounces of water with a Liquid IV and a Propel in it. And I do that on my way to swim. So if you know you're going to have a hot riding day, drink that. Before and during your ride, drink. What is the best way to know that you're hydrated or not? If you're not peeing at all, pardon the ugliness of that, but if you're not peeing at all, you're dehydrated. And if when you pee, it's yellow or worse, brown, or worse, comes out as a powder, then you're super dehydrated. Hydrate yourself. Hydrate yourself. Think about it at night when you're in the hotel room. Think about it when you're riding during the day. You know, when we stop about every 150 to 160 miles, which means we're on the Spider 2.5 hours. Now, for those 2.5 hours, I'm not drinking a whole lot. So when we stop, I hydrate. So make sure you stay hydrated throughout your day, and it's going to save you a lot of trouble. The heat frustration, the heat exhaustion, the heat stroke, it's deadly. You know, we have athletes every year in the South, normally in football, because they're wearing a lot of pads. We have kids die. We have kids literally die on the field. It happens. You need to protect yourself. Be very, very careful with the heat. The big takeaway from this is to prepare for it. That's what this video is all about. You need to prepare for the heat. You know, my mom used to say, if you can't stand the heat, get out of the kitchen. Well, sometimes you can't get out of the kitchen. Sometimes you got to cook dinner for your kids. So prepare for the heat. Just prepare for it. You're going to be okay. So what's a sign that you have acclimatized to the heat? Is there a symptom? There is. When you find your thermostat going up in your house and you find yourself being cold. Now, Coach Vic, she does pretty well in the heat, but she avoids the heat a lot. You know, she's had a lot of issues with the heat. So what I find, and this is, I'll notice, is she wants to keep the thermostat where she normally keeps it, which is that 76 or 77 during the day and 74 at night. Now for me, when the temperature is like that inside, I have to wear a hoodie inside or I am cold. Yes, that's how you know you have adapted to the heat. When the cold air actually makes you cold. When you go into a restaurant and your teeth are chattering, then you know, oh, okay, my body's changed, because this used to feel good to me. Now it's actually more painful than the heat. So there you have it. A few signs and symptoms, a few things to look out for, some methodology to avoid it, some things you can buy, some ways you can prepare for it, some ways you can handle it after it's already happened. All you need to know in another exceptional video from the Coach Bob 3 channel. All right, with all of that said, I want you to do me a favor. You go out, buy the motorcycle of your dreams, eat right, take care of yourself, and remember, if you're not having fun, you are most definitely doing it wrong. Now you go seize the day, and I'll see you on the road real soon.